Yet another vehicle fresh from the auction block, and this one is probably one of the most reliable V8 sedans money could buy during its era. And of course, as you can see, it's none other than a first generation Lexus LS400. Hey, how's it going, do-it-yourselfers? So today we're going to talk all about the first generation Lexus LS400s. I'll also tell you how much I paid for this one, which is a 1983 LS400 at the auction. But also go over why the engine and transmission seem to be so reliable, also why the ride quality is so nice. And not just that, we'll also go over some minor issues these cars do have that if you're looking to buy one of these or you own one of these, you might want to keep an eye out for. All right, so first let's get the specs out of the way. So the first generation LS400s were made from 1990 to 1994. And they come with a 4.0 liter V8 engine that you see right here and a 4-speed automatic transmission. And the engine on these cars produces 250 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. Also, the curb weight of these guys is 3,858 pounds. Yep, a little bit on the chubby side. All right, next, let's talk more in detail about the engine. Let's talk about the configuration of this engine and how this super reliable V8 was made. So these engines come with an aluminum cylinder block and cast iron cylinder liners. Now, manufacturers like to use aluminum for their cylinder blocks because it's obviously a lighter metal. You know, your engine lighter, your entire car is lighter, therefore your MPG is improved. But the problem is aluminum is also a softer metal. Therefore, you have to be really perfect with how you design these engines. Now, if you're a subscriber to my channel, you know more than one manufacturer that has problem with aluminum cylinder blocks, and we won't name names because people will get their feelings hurt. But I'll be happy to tell you that this engine with the aluminum cylinder block has no issues. The engineers at Toyota did their homework and designed this thing right. Also, these V8 engines have 4 camshafts, 2 on each bank. And on each bank, basically you get 1 camshaft for the exhaust valves, 1 camshaft for the intake valves. And by doing this, you allow the engine to breathe better, produce more power, and run more efficient. Now, even though these first generation LS400s do not have variable valve timing, having this setup allowed for an easier implementation of variable valve timing, or VVTi as Toyota calls it, on the later models, and I believe they started having variable valve timing in 1997. Now, variable valve timing obviously makes your car run more efficient, produces more power and all that, but these first generation LS400s, they still did 18 MPG in city driving and 23 MPG for highway driving, which is not bad, especially considering how heavy these things are. Now, one other thing you should know about these engines is that they come with a timing belt and not a chain. But the good news is that these first generation LS400s from 1990 to 1994 are non-interference engines, which means if the timing belt breaks and your timing is out of whack, your valves aren't going to hit each other or your piston causing catastrophic engine failure. On the other hand, if you have or you're looking to buy a 95 to 97 LS400, Toyota increased the compression ratio on those engines, making them an interference engine. So if the timing belt breaks on those from 95 to 97, you will have catastrophic engine failure. Obviously, to avoid this problem, all you have to do is to replace your timing belt on time. Now, another cool feature of these engines is that they come with hydraulic pneumatic motor mounts, which basically means that the engine or motor mounts on these cars not only have rubber, but also have fluid and air inside of them, allowing for much less vibration and noise being transmitted from the engine to the chassis and then from there to inside of the cabin. All this obviously makes for a very nice and quiet ride. All right, next, let's quickly talk about the transmission on these cars. The transmission on these cars came with its own electronic control unit, aka TCM, or transmission control module. Now, this is common practice now, obviously, but back in '93, not bad at all. Now, what the TCM did was basically talk to the engine control module and delayed or retarded timing right before shifts. Now, by doing that, it removed some load from the transmission, so the shifts between gears were a lot smoother that way. Now, one other thing I need to mention about these cars is that they're rear-wheel drive, and looking from the rear of the vehicle, which where we are right now, you can see a 2-piece prop shaft right there. Now, those prop shafts come balanced from the factory, but also these engines are tilted back just a little bit so that when they're mated with the transmission, in the rear of the transmission, when it hits the prop shaft, is in an exact straight line all the way from here to the rear axles. By doing this design, they lose very little to mechanical loss as far as power goes, but not just that, it basically means that the UV joints on your prop shaft or drive shafts lasts pretty much forever. All right, so as far as reliability goes, these engines and transmissions, as you might have guessed by now, are fantastic, especially the engine. It runs really well for a very long time with minimal maintenance. Just do the basics, the oil change, the spark plugs and whatnot, and you should be good to go. There's no major known issues, no overheating issues, head gasket problems, top end problems, bottom end problems, none of that stuff. However, the transmission does need a little bit more care. You have to replace the transmission fluid and filter on time. They still last a long time even if they're slightly neglected, but you really have to work hard to ruin the transmission to a point where it needs to be rebuilt or replaced. But it does need a little bit more care, and they are known to fail from time to time. But overall, these are really, really reliable engines and transmissions on these cars. Now, with that said, there are parts on these cars that go bad from time to time or prematurely and need to be replaced. And we're going to go over them right now. So for starters, pun intended, the starters on these cars go bad, prematurely compared to other makes and models. On some cars, the starter motor and solenoid lasts for a lifetime or the life of the vehicle. On these cars, it doesn't seem to be that way, and they do fail from time to time and need to be replaced. Next, there's an EGR pipe that I remember replacing on 2 occasions on these cars a very long time ago when I had these, and I don't know if my memory serves me right, it's back here somewhere. And you might just be able to barely make it out. That pipe right there, I believe, that cracks and needs to be replaced. Another part that seems to fail is the power steering pump. This guy right here attached to a drive belt, that also seems to fail. Also, the rack and pinion seems to develop leaks and fail too on these cars. Also, the rubber hoses and some of the plastic components on the engine bay or on the engine seem to fail as well. Now, as you can see, some of these rubber hoses, this breather hose seems to be marked. I don't know if that's because it's from a junkyard and whatnot, but actually more than one of these hoses is marked, so we'll hold off judgment there. But the rubber hoses, the plastic pieces, I remember I had to replace this rubber piece on one of the LS400s I had because it developed a crack and it was leaking. So yeah, they tend to fail prematurely, so you got to keep an eye on them and replace them as well. Obviously, not the hardest fixes in the world, but just something you want to keep in mind. Now, besides these, also the alternator on these cars seem to go bad from time to time. But really, besides that, I can't really think of much else. Again, there's the timing belt, the water pump. That's a maintenance item. Also, these cars being heavier, there's more strain on the suspension parts, the struts, shocks, and whatnot, the ball joints. But those are not design flaws or problems with these cars. Any car this size or any car really, those go bad from time to time. All right, now as far as how much I paid for this car at the auction, what if anything wrong with it, and what I plan to do with it. Well, for this car, 93 LS400, I paid $3,518. That includes all the auction fees, the price of the vehicle, and all other fees and expenses included. I didn't have to tow it here because it drives fine, not much wrong with it mechanically. A few minor issues here and there, but nothing major. I was able to easily drive it to my place 45 minutes away. And also it only has 110,000 miles on it, which is pretty good for a 1993 vehicle. And as you can see, the body on this car is in really good shape. There are no dings, no dents, minor scuff marks, not even scuff marks, I would say minor scratches here and there. But overall, the paint, the clear coat, everything is in pretty good shape. Here you can see some scratches on the roof and on this side of the door, but that's pretty much it. Now, as far as having any mechanical issues, not a whole lot. There's this small coolant leak here that can easily be fixed. Besides that, I have not been able to find and see any other oil or coolant leaks. No oil puddles underneath this. Everything is very clean, nice and tidy. The car runs fine. Again, there's not much mechanically wrong with this. Also, again, the interior of this car is in fantastic shape. Here's the driver's seat. Usually the driver's seat gets the most wear, gets the most damage, as you can see, minus this little area right here. This seat is in pretty good shape. All the other seats are in near new, or I would say fantastic condition. And pretty much everything on the interior is in really good shape and works like it's supposed to as well. As far as what I'm going to do with it, well, you guessed it, I'm going to flip it because this garage isn't going to pay for itself. Now, do me a favor and let me know in the comment section how much you think this car is actually worth.
I think it's worth a good penny, maybe $7,000 to $9,000 depending on the right person. Again, it's got low miles, 110,000 miles only, and it's in really good condition. But again, let me know how much you think this car is worth, not how much it's worth to you, because some of you might love this car, some of you might hate it. You know, it still doesn't change what's the value of the car. That's something different from what your personal dislike and likes are in regards to different cars, makes and models. But if you want to follow me along and flipping this car, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell notification. Also, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and check out my other videos that I'll put links to on this side of the screen that you can click on. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.